Chapter 24. Tomorrow it is. When Dylan and a slightly rosy Sky came back into the cabin, they got a thumbs up from Wade and a suspicious look from Jesse, but the awkwardness was short-lived. Wade was on the radio with Tom. Sky rushed to the radio and pushed the button. "Tom, when are you two coming up here to stay?" "I'm working on things, but there are people who need us here too. It's hard to know when we can get away." "Bring them too, there are places for everyone. At least come for the winter. It will be safer." Sky listed all the reasons life on the mountain was better. She ended with, "And I miss you both." Tom laughed. Sky's list was quite lengthy, but she had some excellent points. "We miss you too. I'll talk to the others and see what they think about it." Sky's shoulders slumped when they said their goodbyes. Tom hadn't committed to anything once again. She sighed and picked up the shopping list she'd started earlier. It was getting longer and longer. She dropped into a seat at the kitchen table where the other sat. Sky's brows knitted. When would Tom come up here? Colton seemed so much more dangerous than the mountain. She doodled along the edge of the paper as she worried. She squared her shoulders, worrying would do no good. Paper. They needed more paper. After writing it on the list, she looked over the plain white tablet. Sky added a hyphen and pretty. Pretty paper. Sky glanced at Dylan and Wade as they discussed the route to the superstore the next day. What category would pretty paper fall in? They divided the list into 3 categories. Most important, somewhat important, and it would be nice to have. Wade and Dylan had been content with the first 2. It was Sky and Jesse who wanted the third when they saw how sparse the men's anticipated needs were. And the fact that many of Sky and Jesse's requests were met with frowns. Since the men were adamant about what went on to the first 2 categories, the third became a happy free-for-all for Sky and Jesse. As long as they ignored the scoffs and eye-rolls directed their way. Jesse immediately named the toys and candies he dreamed about, while Sky added beauty regimen products she missed and desperately needed. Wade and Dylan, so used to frugal living, felt even razors a complete luxury. When Sky added them to the somewhat important category, they objected. "There ain't no way razors are that important. Move 'em to the nice to have," Wade insisted. Sky disagreed. "They belong in somewhat important. I'm not saying to risk our lives for them. But if we can look for them, I say we get them. No, they ain't worth the trouble. I want to get in and out." "A little hair never hurt anyone," Dylan said. "Okay." Sky shook her head and pointed the 2 men. "Well, just remember that when I'm as bristly as the 2 of you." She erased razors from the list, moving it to the 3rd column. Dylan rubbed a hand over his somewhat hairy arm. He exchanged a look with Wade, who shrugged. Dylan glanced at Sky with a smirk. "Keep it where it is." Sky giggled. "Thought so." Jesse leaned over Sky's shoulder. "Just remember my car kits." Things on the most important list boiled down to gas, medicines, toilet paper, personal items, soaps, a few food staples, and first aid supplies. Along the way, they would check cars for gas. If they were fortunate, they would go past a filling station that still had fuel. Tom had suggested they check out a superstore close to Fenton. Last he knew, there had been plenty of supplies left there. Tom warned, though, no one from his group had been there in the past month. It was possible another community came and cleared the store out. Wade and Dylan didn't like going that far with Sky and Jesse coming along, but the superstore seemed the most likely place, and they needed everyone's help. "I'm thinkin' we should take all 3 vehicles and really load up," Wade said. "If we get more than we can use, we can always pass some items on to the others up here. We can get another car, and I can drive." Jesse eagerly volunteered, his eyes lighting up at the thought of practicing his driving skills. Sky rejected his plan. You can drive some, but not alone. Jesse's whole body sagged. Ah, you are no fun. Actually, that you drive at all makes us very fun. Sky gently pinched Jesse's cheek as he rolled his eyes. I would rather you two stayed here or at Tom's, Dylan said, but Wade's right. The more we get in one trip, the better. So when do we go? Sky asked. According to the Farmer's Almanac, the weather is clear tomorrow, Wade said. Dylan nodded. Well then, if the morning breaks fine, tomorrow it is. The sun rose the next morning, lending a molten yellow glow to the tree-covered mountain. Sky peeked out the bathroom window as she slipped on her jeans and t-shirt. With a nervous smile, she grabbed a hoodie and tied up her hair. It was exciting to see what the rest of the world was like. But Sky tried to temper the feeling. It could also be dangerous, and she would have to keep a sharp eye out. Wade and Dylan got in their trucks. Sky climbed into her Jeep, Jesse beside her in the passenger's seat. She peered over at Dylan in his black pickup and sent him a warm smile. He winked back. Sky's arms felt empty. I should have hugged him before we left. He probably wouldn't think to do it. It's something I need to remember to do, especially on a day like this. The drive down the curved roads was beautiful. Each turn offered a new view of the forest and mountains. Dappled light raced across the Jeep's windshield. Sky squinted at the green valley below. This might be the last time down the hill until spring, so she soaked it all in. Pretty, huh? Yeah. Jesse lowered the window, letting the crisp wind blow through their hair. A hawk swooped in front of them, letting out a sharp call, as if he scolded them for trespassing. Sky glanced at Jesse as he tipped his head back onto the seat and inhaled the earthy aroma. The boy loved the forest. It was something he often talked about even when he was still with his dad. There was something it did for him, something deep inside. He couldn't name it, but it made him feel good even when things were bad. The forest thinned as they neared Colton. Sky and Jesse eagerly scanned the town. It seemed quiet, like any other sleepy little village. Until the spate of gunfire shattered the silence.